read an awful lot of awfully good books recently, and so I decided to do my review of 5 of my 5-star reads. So I will go through each book and I will talk about them and give you my sort of mini review of them. You probably know what they're already going to be from my sort of TBRs and wrap-ups recently, or if you follow me on social media, which is always linked down below, you will probably know what most of these are going to be as well. In the description box, I will leave all the buy links and the timestamps for when I start talking about each of these books. So if you want to hear about just 1 or 2 of the books, you can scroll along to that part of the video. But if you are looking for some summer recommendations, because a lot of people are on summer holidays now or are planning vacations, then definitely sit through and hear 5 of my 5-star recommendations. I'll try not to ramble too much, but best grab a cup of tea, join me in that one. I've got a peach tea today because I've had quite a lot of caffeine so far today. So yeah, travel does that to you. So the first books that I'm going to talk about are books that are released today as of publishing this video, and then the last couple of books are ones that were released a couple of weeks ago or last month, so they'll have been in my May wrap-up, although this first one was also in my May wrap-up, despite the fact that it is released today in the UK on the 14th of June, and that is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by Miranda Dickinson. I spoke in my wrap-up about how much I loved this book. This book is a dual narrative between Jack and Seren, and Seren is trying to run her dad's business for him and is struggling a little bit with that. She's just recently lost her dad, and so this book is an awful lot about grief. Jack is also struggling with some grief because he recently lost his wife, and he is also struggling in terms of employment because he is a builder or a building site manager, and there isn't a lot of work going in that area. This book is set in Cornwall, which is, well, in St Ives in Cornwall, which obviously means we have lots of amazing description of beautiful beaches. There is a lot of mention of sea glass in this book. I mean, you can see on the beaches here and also on the back, because it goes in as far as being on the back. Yeah, I didn't know much about sea glass, and so I learnt something by reading this book, because reading about the sea glass in this book, and Miranda sent me some sea glass with my copy of the book. Thankfully I still have my matching nails for this book as well. So it's told from Jack's point of view and Seren's point of view. We also have some fabulous supporting characters, forgot the word then. My favourite is Aggie, who runs the coffee hut down on one of the beaches in St Ives, and she is just fabulous and straight talking, and she is Seren's right hand man. We also have supporting character Nessie, who is Jack's daughter and is just fabulous. Where Aggie kind of speaks her mind on Seren's problems, Nessie kind of speaks her mind on everything that's going on in Jack's life, and both of them are just a real breath of fresh air. Because it is a dual narrative, that is what had me turning the pages. I couldn't stop reading this one because I had to find out what was going on from Jack's point of view and what was going on from Seren's point of view, find out what was happening in her world and what was happening in his world. I mentioned the fact that this book does contain a lot of grief, so if you have recently lost someone, you might find that a little bit triggering, but it is done in the most beautiful way. There's all these nods to Seren's dad, not just from her but from the whole community, because he was a massive community man. And then obviously Jack has Nessie, who is half him and half his wife who he lost, and so it's grief, but it's also a Miranda Dickinson novel, and everything she writes is just so uplifting and so optimistic and positive. And so you don't come out of it feeling, oh, I've just read about people who are really struggling with grief. You come out of it going, this was such a lovely read. Great setting, great characters, great storyline, and despite the fact that it's a chunky book, it's a chunky read, I read it really quickly because of the structure. Okay, the next two books I don't have physical copies of because I got these through NetGalley. The first one of these is How Do You Like Me Now by Holly Bourne. Quick tea break. Now this, I had this novel for a long time, and I don't know why I left it until, well, I kind of do know why. I left it until kind of nearly release date to read it. Part of the reason was a lot of people got this book quite early, and there was a lot of hype surrounding this book. And when you have a lot of hype surrounding a book, you kind of go into it with that pressure of the hype on you. And people were starting to read this book in like November, December last year. And so I thought, right, okay, I'll try and sort of get to it maybe in the beginning of the year. It didn't work out that way in the end. But I'm glad I read it away from the hype. Having said that, the hype was well justified because I absolutely loved this book. This book made me laugh out loud. It made me cry. I could identify things going on in the book that I had seen in my own life and I was currently living through. The heroine in this book is 32, 31, 32. I'm 33. So that side of it was just, yes. This is Holly Bourne's first adult novel. I haven't read any of her YA novels. I have them here and on my Kindle, and I don't know why I haven't read them. I'm going to read them, especially after this read, but she writes such a book that has such a kind of feminist standpoint behind it without it being shoved in your face, so to speak. I know some people can be critical of a lot of feminist manifesto. However, this book has a lot of it in, but it is done through the storyline and through the characters, and I loved that about it. The main character has one of those years where everyone she knows is getting married and having a baby. She has been a very successful author because of one novel that she wrote, so she's now kind of dealing with that pressure to write the second book, but she's also dealing with the pressure of social media. She's got the one side of the social media where she has to portray this persona that she puts across in her novel, and her novel's kind of a self-help novel, so she has to be supportive and upbeat and have that personality online. She also has the side of social media that is full of baby scans, baby's first steps, wedding pictures, hen do's, save the dates for weddings, group chats with bridesmaids, etc. And so this book is it's just massively timely when it comes to social media, because it shows how inadequate social media can make you feel, how social media can influence the choices that you make in your own life, and how dangerous that can be. But at the same time, all of this is done through the story, and all of it is done through a story which is relatable and which is comical and which is entertaining, and that's why I loved this book so much. It was as much of a page turner as the book that I just mentioned, but for completely different reasons. It had short chapters, it had Facebook posts and tweets and messages and things like that interspersed between the chapters. And so it was just hugely entertaining, massively relatable, and just so timely. If you haven't read a Holly Bourne novel before, then I would say that this is a great place to start, because this is the place that I started. But if you are looking for something that is about a strong female character but who is still vulnerable enough to show those doubts that she is having in her mind, and to talk about those doubts that she's having about her professional her professional life, her relationship life, her friendship life, then definitely read this. I think it would work even if you aren't a woman in her 30s, the same as the main character. I think if you use social media at all, then this is definitely one for you. The next book that I want to talk about, again, is something that I don't have a physical copy of, and that is The Man Who Didn't Call by Rosie Walsh. This is released today in the UK in paperback. It's already out in ebook, and it is released on the 14th of July with the title Ghosted in the US. Okay, so there's a month to wait in the US, but I'm so getting myself a US copy because I really like the cover of the US copy. Not that the UK cover isn't good, it's fine, but I've seen people with proofs of the US edition, and obviously I've seen the cover on Amazon, and it's lovely. So this follows main character Sarah, who we meet kind of like in the middle of the full story, the big picture. So obviously we meet her at the beginning of our Man Who Didn't Call story, but in terms of her life and how she's living her life and how she has lived her life, we're very much meeting her in the middle. And this is, sometimes I find that this is difficult to pick up when I read a novel that's like this, but in this case, this made for a real page turner. It was a very compelling story, and I did stay up until 3 a.m. to finish this one. I was sat reading alone with a snoring husband next to me in a hotel room in Montreal, having started it the day before. But Sarah is dealing with the man who didn't call. She had a wonderful week with a man, and then he ghosted her. She can't get hold of him. She's tried Facebook, she's tried calling, she's tried texting, she's tried WhatsApp, she's tried Facebook Messenger. Yeah, and she's dealing with this fallout of the man who didn't call, which sounds like just your kind of everyday rom-com story, but there are so many more levels to this story than you realise when you read those first few chapters. So many more levels. And this is what I mean about meeting Sarah in the middle of her big picture story. We get to find out a little bit about her past. We get to find out a little bit more about the man who didn't call. Sarah's family is quite key in this novel, and the fact that Sarah kind of fled the UK at some point to go and live in LA. So she's just back for a visit when we meet her. It was really interesting reading about somebody who has lived in both the UK and the US, because I think that it does mean that you do have a slightly different take on some things. You don't see everything from that British point of view, but you don't see everything from that American point of view as well, which is quite interesting. And I think in terms of the character development that this author has done, she's really developed her character incredibly well, because you do see that aspect of Sarah as we go through the course of the book. Obviously, I don't want to talk an awful lot about things that are revealed through the book, but as I say, this story runs so much deeper than just the guy that didn't call, and there are reveals throughout the book that will keep you turning those pages until 3 a.m. And they did make me gasp. Some did make me cry, and I was crying at 3 a.m. when I finished the book. And that's about all you need to know about that one. It's definitely a 5-star read for me. I knew going into this one that it was going to be a 5-star read for me, because although this is Rosie Walsh's debut novel in both the UK and the US, she has written other novels under a different name in the UK, and those ones have kept me up late and have all been 5-star reads as well. So I was ready for this one to be awesome and amazing, and it went in directions I wasn't expecting, and I loved that about it. Okay, so the next one that I want to talk about, let's do another one that I haven't actually got the copy of, but I read From Twinkle with Love by Sandhya Menon. I know this doesn't exactly fit with the other books in this video because it is a young adult novel. However, it is a recent 5-star read for me, and it is a 5-star read that stayed with me as well. As much as I mentioned that Holly Bourne's book had a lot of feminist manifesto in it, Twinkle is also a massive feminist, and I loved reading about her so much. Obviously, Sandhya Menon is well known for writing When Dimple Met Rishi, and I made a whole video talking about that, so I'll link it up here. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to bash the table there. I think I possibly loved this one even more than When Dimple Met Rishi. This one was just that little bit more girl power, and was just that little bit more romantic, and was just that little bit more, yes, Twinkle, get it kind of thing. And that's what I loved about this book so much. It just had all those things. And sometimes people think that a romance novel, especially a teen romance novel, and somebody being like a strong feminist and a strong female lead, that the two things can't be intertwined and can't exist in the same book. But Sandhya Menon has shown us that indeed they can. Indeed they can. And it will be one of those books that you want to hug when you've finished, definitely. Twinkle is a filmmaker, and an awesome filmmaker at that. I feel like I know her. It's one of those where you get so invested in a character, you feel like you know her. And another thing that I loved about the book is that this is all set in Colorado Springs, but just down the road from me. I'm pointing that way because you get on the road there and go south. It's just there. And I liked the fact that it was an unusual setting in that sense. So many kind of YA romance novels are set in New York, or set in California, or just set in kind of generic Midwest or generic South. And so I like the fact that this novel was set near me. It's always interesting to have a different setting for a novel. And the fact that Twinkle is obviously, as I say, a filmmaker, and we have the whole thing right now that you do not get Oscar nominated female directors, you do not get Oscar nominated female just filmmakers in general. Films in the box office currently do not have females represented in them, whether it's starring in them, writing them, directing them, producing them, doing the cinematography, doing the special effects. And so I loved the fact that Twinkle was representing females in that field. I would really, if you're watching this, Sandhya, I would really like to hear more from Twinkle. I need to hear some more from her, even if it's just like a little bit. She has stayed with me, and that is the reason that From Twinkle with Love has made it into my 5-star reads that I've read recently, because she has stayed with me, and she is awesome. And so I need to hear more from her and find out what's happening with her filmmaking career, if possible, please. And finally, my 5th book that I'm going to talk about, again, I mentioned this one in my May wrap-up, and so you will be ready to hear from a video, you'll be ready to have a video about this one, because I mentioned that I was going to make a video about this one. This one came out in the UK a month ago, and came out in the US, again with an alternative title. All about the alternative titles in this video. This one came out in the US on Tuesday, so it's just out, so you can go and get it. The link will be below. So in the UK it came out as Little Big Man with this beautiful cover, and in the US it came out as Little Big Love, and it has a pink and blue cover. I might pop it in here so you can see. And yeah, you might remember me hauling this one because I actually did a charity bid on this one to win a signed copy. So I have a signed copy of it. I ended up listening to this one on audiobook. I downloaded the Kindle copy because it was 99p. It's not 99p anymore, sorry. And they were like, add audible narration. And I was like, of course add audible narration. I love an audiobook. So I got it on audiobook and I listened to the audiobook, and I am so pleased that I did, because the audiobook of this one was fantastic. It concerns Zach, who is just a fabulous 10-year-old. He is 10. Is he 10 or 12? 10-year-old Zach. Yes. Zach is a fabulous 10-year-old. We have Mum Juliet, and we also have another couple of narrators in this one, but I don't want to give away the other narrators because I feel like they're kind of spoilers. And Zach is getting to that stage where he's kind of aware of his background, he's aware of his body, and he's aware of his kind of place in society, really. And he really is a little big man. He is such a wise character. I have worked with 10-year-olds for most of my teaching career, and so it was wonderful to read about him, because I've met boys like him and they don't get a good representation in novels and books, or any representation in novels and books. And so it was so fantastic to read about another amazing 10-year-old, just like some of the kids that I've taught. And the narrator for 10-year-old Zach in the audiobook does a really fantastic job. Sometimes kids in audiobooks get awful narration and really put me off reading it. I can think of some really specific examples. However, Zach gets a great narrator in this one, and they are from, they live in Grimsby, and they get proper accents from Grimsby as well, so it was nice hearing some northern accents throughout the book. So yeah, good job audiobook for this one. The story flip-flops between Zach and Juliet and these other narrators, and we're basically finding out about Zach's father. And Juliet has always told him that he doesn't really have a dad because his dad left before he was born. He did a runner, he didn't want to face up to his responsibilities, and that is what Juliet has maintained, and that is what Zach has always bought. But as I say, now he's asking some questions, and he goes on this find dad mission with his best friend, which is so cute, but also so immense and so big, and like there's so many issues around that, but it's dealt with in such a great way in this novel. And the fact that this is written partly from Zach's point of view as well is just, it wouldn't have worked any other way. And so I love the fact that we've got this dual narrative as well. Obviously, with Zach looking for his father, this throws up a whole load of things for Juliet and her life choices, and also for Juliet's family as well. Again, not going too far into that because I don't want to give away spoilers, because I want you to just read the book because it's great. There were moments in this book, even though it's an audiobook, which doesn't always do this for me, it made me cry. And there were some fantastic moments in this book that made me laugh. There was plenty in this book that made me think. And as I mentioned, this book was really relatable because I've worked with some 10-year-olds like Zach, and it was so great to see them living on the page. I really felt for Juliet in terms of the kind of age she is and the age I am, and the kind of mystery surrounding Zach's dad, even though this book isn't a mystery, it's just a great story. Was really interesting and definitely kept me listening and kept me wanting to keep going with this book, because I wanted to find out all about who he was and how he came to be and how he came to not be there, as much as Zach did. I had that kind of childlike curiosity for his dad. So yes, as I said, everything will be linked down below. All the buy links will be linked down below. I'm so lucky that I've read so many amazing 5-star reads recently. 3 of them are books that are released today, 2 of them are books that are released last month, 1 of them will be released in a month in the US, another of them is came out on Tuesday in the US, so they're all very much current reads, and if you are looking to add to your summer reading list, your summer TBR, I definitely recommend all of these books. They were all fantastic. They had amazing characters. They kept me up late reading. They kept me from doing other things reading, and I just enjoyed them so much. So yeah, if you've made it this far, well done. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and let me know in comments if you have any 5-star reading recommendations that you think I should add to my list. It's always great to get comments, and I try and reply to them as quickly as possible. I will be back with another video soon. I have a couple of hauls that I'm going to be bringing you, so definitely look out for those, and so I will see you then. Bye.